Hi, my name's Morty Lefko. I'll be guiding you through this program. You're about to embark on a very exciting journey. A few minutes from now, something you now feel is true, that's having a negative impact on your life, will be gone. You will have quickly, easily, and permanently eliminated a belief and freed yourself from its limiting effect on your life. I promise you that the next few minutes will make a significant impact on the quality of your life. We talk about beliefs all the time, but what do we really mean when we say we have a belief? A belief is a statement about reality that feels true on some level. We think our beliefs are accurate statements about reality. Now, you may know intellectually that your belief is not true and still believe it. For instance, you probably have the belief, I'm not good enough. Very few people escape childhood without forming this belief. By the time you eliminate it, you'll understand why. Now, you may know as an adult that you are good enough. Look at the evidence. Look at your successes. Look at the difference you've made. And yet, you may still have the belief that I'm not good enough, which was formed early in your life. While we don't want you to say anything that isn't true for you, the more open you are to acknowledging a belief you really do have, the more easily and quickly that belief can be eliminated. Whether you agree with your beliefs or not, they still determine your thoughts, feelings, and behavior. So it's important to totally eliminate beliefs that produce undesirable results in your life. We're all embarrassed to acknowledge that we hold certain negative beliefs. You may well have spent most of your life trying to suppress your awareness of these beliefs. The truth is, you needn't be ashamed of having negative beliefs. CEOs, professors, famous writers and performers have beliefs just like the one you will eliminate on this program. I've had an awful lot of them myself. So back to I'm not good enough. During this process, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. The process works if you answer each question out loud. It usually doesn't work if you don't. So please answer each of my questions out loud, even if the answer is only yes or no. I'll remind you to answer out loud throughout the process because I'm committed to you eliminating this belief permanently by the time you complete this process in just a few minutes. If you need more time for your answers, please click the pause button just below the picture. Take as much time as you need, and then click the play button when you're ready to resume. There are several ways to know if you have this belief. Do you ever feel like I'm not good enough, even a little bit? Remember, please answer each question out loud. Do you feel I'm not good enough when you make a mistake or fail? If you truly believed I am good enough, would making a mistake or failing at something change your mind? It's not very likely, is it? If you don't live up to people's expectations, do you feel as if you're not good enough? That also would be evidence you hold this belief. Do you procrastinate a lot? Are you worried that what you're putting off won't be good enough? More evidence that you probably hold this belief. You're answering out loud, aren't you? Say I'm not good enough out loud. Even though you may disagree intellectually with the statement I'm not good enough, doesn't it feel true on some gut level? You either have a belief or you don't. Like being pregnant, there's no sort of. To tell you the truth, most of the more than 13,000 clients we've worked with have had it. If you answered yes to any of these questions, you probably do have the belief. And if you do have this belief and don't eliminate it, you'll have a hard time improving your self-confidence and freeing yourself from worrying about what others think of you. It could keep you from speaking up when there's something you have to say. This belief could be a significant barrier to getting what you want in life. Please say the belief out loud again. This gives you the opportunity to experience what it feels like. You'll say the words out loud again at the end of the process and will experience what the same words feel like when you no longer believe the statement. Based on our experience with thousands of clients, I can honestly say that most people have this belief. But if you're absolutely certain that you don't have this belief, please click Next Belief. Before we take you to eliminate your next belief, however, I've got a special treat in store for you. The next process in this program is called Who Am I Really? One recent visitor told me after using this process that she felt emotionally invincible after using it. Most people get the sense that anything is possible, and it feels like you have no limitations. As a result, many who use it say this is the most powerful part of the entire program. After you finish it, please send us a note and let us know what you think of it. If you believe, like most of us, I'm not good enough, please type this belief into the space provided on your computer as soon as I stop speaking. To continue with the process, please click Continue on your screen below when you've finished writing and saying, I'm not good enough. The next step to eliminate a belief is to figure out when you formed it. Almost all of our self-esteem beliefs, including this one, were formed from events that occurred when you were a very young child. A belief usually doesn't come from a single incident, but from many similar interactions. And when it's a belief about oneself like, I'm not good enough, it's always formed from experiences we've had with our parents. This is not to play the blame game with your parents. Most likely, they did their best to bring you up as well as they could. Most parents love their children. But how many are aware that children are forming these kinds of beliefs as they grow up? I think you know the answer to that one. After all, what parenting university did your parents go to? Probably the same one my parents went to. As a result, most parents just don't realize the impact of their words and behavior on their children. And that's why most of us form negative beliefs from our interactions with our parents, even though that's not what they intended at all. You see, there's a constant conflict between what most parents want and what most children do. Parents usually want their kids to be quiet. Kids are usually not quiet. Parents usually want their kids to be neat. Young children don't even understand the concept of neat. Parents usually want their kids to do what they're told. Kids usually want to do what they want to do. When kids don't follow instructions, the reaction of their parents ranges from mild annoyance to extreme anger and punishment. Now look at your early life and see where the belief, I'm not good enough, comes from for you. If your parents frequently got annoyed or disappointed, or if they had that disgusted look or tone of voice, or if you rarely got acknowledged for what you did achieve, or if you frequently didn't live up to your parents' expectations, you found the source of this belief. It's okay if one experience comes to mind. It's also okay if 100 experiences come to mind. What's important is that you know that no one event led to the belief. In fact, in most cases, a belief is formed from many similar experiences. So even if you remember only one event, it's just an example of the way your parents usually reacted when they didn't like your behavior. It's important to keep this in mind as you proceed through the remaining steps of this process. You might not have experienced the exact situations I just described in your childhood, but I'll bet you probably did experience something like them. In some families, the disapproval and criticism is subtle, and in others very obvious, but it's almost always there. Even if you're unable to remember specific events, the process will work if you have a sense that similar events occurred when you were a child, and you can visualize the way your parents would have looked and or sounded as they responded to you. Remember, the purpose of this step in the process is not to make your parents wrong. Even if you had a wonderful childhood and had great parents, very few of them are able to keep from getting annoyed with the behavior of their young children. And if you can't remember your childhood, don't worry. There's a way to complete this step even if you have no early memories. I can't remember anything before the age of 6 and very little before the age of 9. And I've eliminated several hundred beliefs and have had many major changes in my life. To begin with, you don't need to remember specific incidents. As long as you have a sense that one or both of your parents has got annoyed or angry when you didn't do what they wanted, when they wanted, and the way they wanted, and you can imagine what that would have been like, that's all that's necessary. Here's another way to find the source of the belief. Recall whatever you can of your relationship with your parents when you were a bit older. Maybe when you were in elementary school, junior high, or even high school. How did your parents react when you didn't do what they wanted or you didn't do things the way they wanted you to do then? How did your parents deal with a younger brother or sister? This will probably make it a little bit more real how they probably treated you when you were a small child. When you imagine how they responded to you, doesn't it seem like you could see "I'm not good enough" in those events? If so, you found the source of the belief. I don't mean you were consciously thinking this at the time. Most of the time when we conclude something, we don't say it out loud or even internally. But often in hindsight, it's clear that we did in fact conclude something about what was happening. Please pause the video while the memories continue to come to mind and spend a moment remembering how your parents reacted when you didn't do what they wanted, when they wanted, or the way they wanted. Okay, now you've imagined some examples of childhood events that could have led to the belief "I'm not good enough." By the way, these same events could lead to forming other beliefs, such as mistakes and failure are bad, I'm not capable, and I'm not competent. When I stop speaking, type into the text box on the screen the type of things your parents did and said in your childhood that led you to form this belief, "I'm not good enough." Rather than writing down how you felt, describe the actual situations, what your parents actually said and did, such as, "My dad usually shouted at me when I made a mistake," or "Mom frequently got annoyed with me when I didn't do things exactly the way she wanted." Take the time you need because this is important. When you're done writing, click Continue below to continue the process to eliminate this belief. Look at the events you've written down. Can you see that the conclusion you reached, "I'm not good enough," is a valid interpretation of those events? Would you say that many children the same age as you, who had the same experiences as you, would have formed the same conclusion you did? Now we're going to play a little game I like to call Possibilities. We'll imagine 4 friends of yours are visiting you and looking at a videotape of the events you just wrote down. Now, your interpretation of those events when you were a child was, "I'm not good enough." That is one valid interpretation of Mom and Dad's behavior. That interpretation wasn't wrong, but there are other reasonable interpretations of the same childhood events that you just didn't think of as a child. So let's ask each of your friends for another alternative interpretation. One friend might well say, "Mom and Dad thought you weren't good enough, but they were just plain wrong." Couldn't this interpretation explain your childhood events just as well as your interpretation, "I'm not good enough"? Now here's what your second friend says after watching the video of your childhood. "Mom and Dad were mad or annoyed because you didn't do what they wanted or the way they wanted or when they wanted, not because you aren't good enough." Isn't this interpretation just as good as the interpretation you came up with, "I'm not good enough"? Here's a third possible interpretation of your childhood events that one of your friends suggests. Maybe you weren't good enough as a kid, but that doesn't mean you never will be. Couldn't this interpretation explain those events in your childhood just as well as your interpretation that "I'm not good enough"? You see, your childhood interactions with your parents could have lots of meanings. Here's one your fourth friend suggests. Mom and Dad's annoyance wasn't because you weren't good enough. They just had unrealistic expectations for a child your age. Friend number one has another suggestion. Maybe you weren't good enough to do certain things. That doesn't mean you weren't good enough as a person. And friend two comes up with another one. Your parents thought that acknowledging you would lead you to get a swelled head. That's why they reacted the way they did. Couldn't any one of these interpretations explain those events in your childhood just as well as your interpretation that "I'm not good enough"? Of course they can. So do you accept that "I'm not good enough" is not a fact? It's not the truth, but just a truth? Merely one interpretation of many possible interpretations of earlier events? Let me repeat the question, and please make sure you answer out loud. Does "I'm not good enough" now seem like it's not the truth, but just a truth? Another way of saying this is, do you get that this belief is just one interpretation of many possible interpretations of the events we discussed earlier? Feel free to pause the program so you can read over the interpretations if you'd like. With a little help from me and from your friends, it's now clear that your parents' reactions to you after you didn't do what they wanted you to do could have at least 6 different reasonable interpretations or meanings. Do you remember what you wrote down a few minutes ago as the source of your belief I'm not good enough? Look at the text box below your screen. Right now, imagine seeing what you saw then and hearing what you heard then. Take a few minutes and really imagine the events of your childhood that led you to the formation of the belief I'm not good enough. Didn't it seem when you were a child as if you could actually see I'm not good enough in those early events with your parents? It did, didn't it? You may have the sense that you didn't see the belief, you felt it. Once you formed the belief I'm not good enough, you probably did feel it. I'll say more about the feeling in a minute, but what I'd like you to focus on now is not the feeling but on my question. Didn't it seem as if you could see I'm not good enough? As if we're out there in the world. Here's why we usually think we can see our beliefs. What happened was that you looked at events that could have had many different meanings and chose one, which was I'm not good enough. By attributing that specific meaning to the events, each time you saw mom and dad's behavior, it was as if you could see that meaning in their behavior. But you didn't discover the meaning in the events. You attributed the meaning to the events. They had no meaning before you gave them one. Look at the lemon on the screen. Can you see the lemon without seeing the yellow? No, the color is inseparable from the actual object. You can't see one without seeing the other. Even imagining the lemon will cause you to imagine the color yellow. It's the same when you attribute a meaning to an event. Once you do, seeing the event is the same as seeing its meaning for you. Right now, imagine being a little kid and seeing mom and dad's behavior and expression, and hearing their words and tone of voice. As you imagine it right now as a little child, doesn't it seem as if you can see I'm not good enough? It does, doesn't it? But did you really see I'm not good enough? Before you answer, here's what I mean by seeing something. You can see the computer you're using now, right? What color is it? What shape is it? Where is it? Isn't it true that anything you can see can be described by shape, color, and location? You answered yes out loud, didn't you? Well then, what did I'm not good enough look like when you were a child? What color was it? What shape was it? Where was it? Did you ever really see I'm not good enough? Yes, I know you saw mom and dad's behavior when they were annoyed with you, when you heard them criticize you. Anyone could have seen that. But you just realized that what you saw and heard could have many different meanings in addition to the one you gave the events, which was I'm not good enough. You may respond, Mom and Dad said I'm not good enough. I heard them say it. You may have heard them say it, but you never heard that it was true. One interpretation of their statement is that they're right. Another interpretation is they're wrong. It's clear that anything you can see, like a person or an object, can be physically described. So if you can't physically describe what I'm not good enough looks like, is it clear now that you never really saw it? Now, if you never really saw I'm not good enough, what did you see? Imagine being a little kid again and tell me what you're seeing right now. Is it clear that all you really saw was the reaction of one or both of your parents when you did something? In other words, all you really saw was a series of events, right? I heard you say yes, didn't I? Remember what I pointed out a few minutes ago. What happened was that you looked at a series of events which can be interpreted in many different ways. You gave the events one meaning, which was I'm not good enough. By attributing that specific meaning to the events each time you saw mom and dad's behavior, it was as if you could see that meaning in their behavior. But you didn't discover the meaning in the events, you attributed the meaning to the events. Can you get that they had no meaning before you gave them one? I'm going to make an important distinction between consequences and meaning. There clearly were consequences to your parents' behavior. You got yelled at or punished, or your parents didn't talk to you. That was an unpleasant consequence. But was there any meaning to their behavior? Let me explain what I mean by meaning. Imagine you're in a room, and someone you know comes in and doesn't speak to you. What might you automatically think? For example, you might have just said, they're mad at me, or they're being rude, or they had something on their mind and just didn't notice me. Notice, however, that whatever you just said is the meaning you gave to the event. And where did the meaning you just gave their behavior come from? That's right, your mind. Meaning is in your mind, yes? So if meaning is in your mind, is there any meaning inherent in your parents' behavior, or in any other events for that matter? Of course, the answer is no. So it's not that what happened to you as a child didn't matter. It just has no meaning. Is it real now that the events had no meaning until you attributed one to them? Here's another way to understand that events have no inherent meaning. When I say that, I'm saying that you don't know anything for sure about you, about other people, or about life as a result of these experiences. What do I know for sure, if you're good enough or not, from knowing how your parents treated you when you were a child? Nothing. And if I don't know anything, then you don't either. Now finally, if you never saw I'm not good enough out there in the world, where's it been all these years? Did I hear you say that I'm not good enough has only ever existed in your mind? That you never did see it out there in the world? That's right. Now, if the belief is more real to you as a feeling than as a concept, if it seems as if your parents' words and behavior didn't lead you to see your belief, but rather to feel your belief, here's another way to look at it. Didn't it seem as if your parents' behavior when you were a child made you feel that I'm not good enough? It did, didn't it? I'd like to suggest, however, that their behavior couldn't have made you feel I'm not good enough, because as you just acknowledged, the events had no meaning. And meaningless events can't make you feel anything, can they? Let's use an analogy to make this totally clear. If you're sitting in your room reading a book or watching TV with no intention of going out and it starts raining, what do you feel about the rain? Answer out loud, please. Probably nothing. The rain's not causing you to feel anything. Now imagine you're a farmer whose crops haven't had water for weeks and are now being saved by the rain. In this situation, how does the rain make you feel? It seems as if the rain makes you feel good. Well now, let's imagine you're about to have an outdoor wedding and everyone's getting soaked. How does the rain make you feel now? It seems as if the rain makes you feel bad. But is it really the rain that's making you feel good or bad? Or is it the meaning you're giving the rain? The rain itself has no meaning and can't produce any feelings. But give the rain one meaning and you feel good, give it another meaning and you feel bad. So if mom and dad's behavior had no meaning, it couldn't have made you feel I'm not good enough. And that leads us to a very interesting question. What did make you feel that? If you don't know the answer to this question, I'll tell you. You felt that only because that's the meaning you had already given to your parents' behavior. All you know for sure is what actually happened. Your mom and dad sounded annoyed or angry and perhaps punished you when you didn't do what they wanted you to do when they wanted you to do it. Let me help you make this real. Imagine that I had been there when you were a little child and had shown you the alternative interpretations for your parents' behavior. And after that conversation you concluded, my parents have unreasonable expectations of me. Their annoyance has nothing to do with whether I'm good enough or not. Now imagine being a little kid, and that after this conversation, Mom and Dad get annoyed at something you did or didn't do. Notice how it feels to be a child who's thinking, my parents have unreasonable expectations of me. That's why they're annoyed, not because I'm not good enough. You can use the pause button below to pause the video while you make this childhood scenario more real for yourself. When you're done imagining, press the play button. As you imagine this scene, giving it this other meaning, does it still feel as if your parents' behavior and their comments are making you feel I'm not good enough? Probably not. And if you didn't feel I'm not good enough then, would you feel it now? Again, you've probably just answered no out loud. So Mom and Dad's behavior never caused you to feel I'm not good enough. That feeling came from your interpretation of their behavior. And since your feelings were not caused by events in reality, they were only the result of the meaning you made up to explain the events, is it real that your feelings tell you nothing about whether or not you're good enough? Okay, now take a deep breath, let it out slowly, and then say out loud, I'm not good enough. Is it the truth? Does it still feel like the truth? You might say, of course I'm not good enough is not true. How could I possibly think that after going through all of this? But I'm not asking if the belief makes logical sense. I'm asking you to look at the statement in the same way you did when you started working on this belief. Does it still feel like I'm not good enough is true on a gut level? Does the statement feel true? Or do the words feel flat now? Don't forget that we form beliefs to give meaning to events that have no real meaning. Having done that, we then think we observe the meaning in the events out there in the world. It becomes a fact for us. Once we realize that the earlier events never had any real meaning, that the meaning was only in our mind, that it was never a fact, and that the feeling we had was caused by the meaning we gave meaningless events, the belief disappears forever. Take another deep breath, then let it out, and say out loud, I'm not good enough. Doesn't it feel very different when you say these words now than when you said them at the beginning? Is there any sense of believing the statement at all? Unless the belief is 100% gone, so the words have no emotional meaning for you, you probably still have the belief. Remember, holding a belief is like being pregnant. You either is or you ain't. There's no sort of. The way to know if a belief has been eliminated is not to look at your feelings or thoughts in the past, when you did have the belief, or even try to guess how you'll feel in the future. The belief felt true on some level when you started, or you would not have spent time on the program. When you say the words of the belief now, I'm not good enough, do they feel true like they did when you started? Or do they sound sort of meaningless? If there's no emotional resonance when you say the words, the belief is gone. It might be difficult to accept that a belief you've lived with for many years can be eliminated in about 30 minutes. And yet that's exactly what's happened tens of thousands of times using the Lefko method. If I'm not good enough feels true at all, even a little bit, you probably still have the belief. You probably need to review the last part of the process a second time, because on some level it still seems like you saw your belief. Once it's clear that you never saw I'm not good enough, the belief will be totally gone. So if this is the case, please click the repeat button to repeat that step of the process. I want to congratulate you. You just eliminated a belief you've been living with for most of your life. Do you know that some people, possibly even you, spend years trying to get rid of a belief, and you just did it in about 30 minutes? As a result of getting rid of this belief, the little voice that criticizes what you do will become quieter. Your self-doubt will decrease. But remember that a lack of self-confidence and a concern with the opinion of others can be caused by as many as 10 beliefs and 4 conditionings. So you might have to eliminate a few more beliefs before you see any noticeable change. Before you move on to eliminate your next belief, I've got a special treat in store for you. The next part of this program is called, Who Am I Really? One recent visitor told me after using this process that she felt emotionally invincible after using it. Most people get the sense that anything is possible, and it feels like nothing is missing. As a result, many who use it say this is the most powerful part of the entire program. After you finish it, send us a note and let us know what you think of it. Now, you can either click Who Am I Really and move on to the next part of the program, or close this program. Then make a note to yourself when you plan to return and resume the program.